This meeting of the RAND Board is now called into order, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's stand at this time. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time, do we have any public to address the board on any matter not on the agenda? None. Any additions to the agenda that anybody's aware of? None. We'll move on to regular items then. First item is item 5A, RAND Board consideration and approval of minutes of the previous meeting, October 28th. What's your pleasure?
Make a motion to approve.
Move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? Discussion for the public. Do we have to do public discussion on these? We should, huh? That's Brown Act.
On minutes?
Yeah. So public
Sure.
discussion, none. Bring it back to the board. Roll call vote, please. Or no, we can do a general vote, right?
Well, it's not really necessary because it's under the consent calendar.
It's a regular item.
But Brown Act requires a basic roll call vote on all items anyway. So we might as well do it that way, I guess. We could just have the record reflect that unanimous vote if there's no abstentions or.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair rules that the vote is unanimous, and the record can reflect that. Item 5B.
Update on the Cal ID Remote Access Network RAND Board budget for fiscal year 2015-2016. As of today, the cash balance is $413,400. We have not received the third and fourth quarter yet deposits. The third quarter we will be receiving sometime in May, in the approximate amount of $25,000. The total expenditures for the fiscal year so far are $147,827. That amount came from the 5 purchases of LiveScan for probation, corrections, Madera Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, and the City of Chowchilla. It also came from, $11,000 came from the necessary repairs for Corrections Department. And we, again, will not anticipate the third and fourth quarter until May and in August.
Okay. Any questions on this item? This is just informational?
Yes.
Okay.
Item 5C, discussion regarding identifying and reporting of expenditures and planned expenditures.
Can't hear you.
You got to put on.
No, green light's on. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board, County Council. My name is Roy Santos with County Council. I come before you to discuss an issue regarding the expenditures on the RAND board's annual budget. The vehicle code requires a designation that all the monies in the budget don't have to be spent. At the end of the year, those monies have to be either designated encumbered or unencumbered. And so far, unfortunately, there's been several years that we haven't met that requirement, and we received an audit letter from the state auditing that. And so the issue, I guess, that County Council is here to discuss is making that change so that those monies are designated to some sort of project. Again, it doesn't have to be spent each year, but it has to be allocated somewhere. And we so far have not been meeting that requirement.
I have a question. Can we designate it to a fund that would be encumbered for a specific purpose or non-specific purpose?
I believe it has to be for a specific purpose, but I can check into that further and report back to the board. But typically they want it designated to encumbered for something.
Okay.
Some sort of project. That encumbrance can be changed at a later date. But
So we're not bound to the encumbrance?
no, but it
So
needs to be designated that it's going somewhere. It just can't be kind of left on the books unallocated.
Can't be in savings, huh?
Correct.
Wow. Yeah, the state doesn't know how to save.
It's a weird requirement in the sense that
think so.
they don't require you to spend the money, but they require you to tell them that at some point in the future you're going to spend the money on something.
That's obvious. Okay, very good. This is, anybody have any questions regarding this?
So Roy, what's the solution? Do we have to change how we're doing our budget page so that it shows that we basically have a zero balance of money that's not allocated or encumbered?
Correct. We need to change our reporting so that it clearly shows that the monies are either unencumbered or encumbered.
Okay.
Are there going to be any ramifications going back?
At
We
this
know of?
at this point, we don't know yet. We'll be responding to the state with a bit of a mea culpa on our part.
Yeah, sorry about that. We didn't mean to
Exactly.
do it.
Yeah, we won't do it again because the thing was some years it was done and some years it wasn't. So it's not that the board kind of completely forgot to do it or we're just not abiding by the rule. It was done.
Right.
It was done some years and it
Okay.
wasn't. The state actually finally went back and kind of looked and said, wait, you have a couple, and I believe it's the last 2 years that we had basically no money spent, and we had expenditures on there that weren't listed as either encumbered or unencumbered.
Okay.
So when you say that we have encumbered and unencumbered, how is unencumbered different than showing it that it's not going anywhere? I mean, if it's not encumbered, it's just a savings.
I believe for the designation for encumbered, it would be something that you're spending on a project.
I
That
get the encumbered part. It's the unencumbered that's.
Yeah, the unencumbered is my understanding is that it's directed towards a project that isn't in effect yet. That would be the unencumbered, because that would permit you to change the designation at a future time. But it's basically saying, well, in 2 years, we would like to spend X number of dollars on
So
such project.
we have to show money either encumbered or planned to be spent.
Correct.
So there's a plan for the money. It's earmarked for something specific. It's not just
Correct.
savings.
Yeah, it just can't sit in the account. We have to tell the state we're going to use this for something, whether now or 2 years from now. That way they know it's just not sitting there.
Any more questions on this item?
When do we have to have this budget altered by?
The state hasn't given us a specific date, but I would say sooner rather than later, just so that we can show that we're in compliance. The first step is that county council will be sending a letter to the state, explaining our thoughts on the process and that we will be correcting the budget.
Right, and I think for whoever staff ends up doing the next budget, it needs to be clearly defined what encumbered, if there's a difference between encumbered and budgeted, it needs to be there, because to us, encumbered means we've already had approved purchases that we turned into our governing body, and that money is physically set aside to pay that specific vendor, and unencumbered is the rest of your money that's budgeted towards whatever organization key or money is sitting in. So if it just has to be budgeted, we just need to make sure the words are clear, I guess, to satisfy our friends at the state.
Correct. And unfortunately, my understanding is looking back at kind of the structure for the RAND board, it didn't clearly kind of spell that out, which led to the problem to begin with.
And members, not to interrupt, but items 5D and 5E were on the agenda to kind of have that future planning. Unfortunately, Cogent Corey is not here to address those matters, but I did have those planned on the agenda today to discuss.
Okay, and those are postponed until February 24th.
Yeah, we would like to postpone those to February 24th so that we have Corey here to present those items in more depth.
So we probably need a motion to do that.
Yes,
Postpone,
please.
Bring them back on February 24th.
Direction.
Motion.
Dan, I didn't, though. I don't see in Cogent's maintenance agreement, what is the cost for that? I mean, it shows zeros at the end of this.
Yes, that was the information that he was supposed to provide us today, and unfortunately was unable to. He had some conflicting scheduling issues, so we did decide to postpone this until February 24th. I didn't get the phone call until yesterday afternoon.
That's kind of typical for Cogent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll hear a motion to postpone those items to February. Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion to the motion? Any discussion from the public? Back to the board. What is your pleasure? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is unanimously carried.
Mr. Chairman, do we need to present staff or anyone with any direction related to 5C should county council receive, a letter of direction between now and our next meeting
Might be a good idea.
as to giving them the authority to go ahead and put a budget together that meets the state's demand?
Yeah. I think that would be a good direction. We want to go back.
Make that a motion.
Okay, a motion.
I guess I would move on 5C that
Take necessary action.
that we empower the clerk and county council to take the necessary action to make the budget comply with the state requirement without further action from this board if it's required to be done before this board meets again.
Good motion. Is there a second?
Just for clarification, I'm not sure that they can amend the budget to effectively meet state standards without this board's approval, identifying what they're going to spend those budgets on.
And the next budget's going to be coming up here in June. I'll be presenting to you guys, so if maybe we can just get together and work on that and have it for our next budget.
Yeah, I think it's going to take action by this board to say we want to spend $200,000 on blue check devices and an
To rectify
upgrade
the
to
old
a
budget.
server and a maintenance agreement, and then if it doesn't get encumbered by that amount, we don't cover the full amount, then we have a plan to spend the remaining money in either the proceeding, so that has to be spelled out in order for them to create that budget.
Correct. So
Right.
the board would have to approve, county council, and we can't approve the expenditures. The board would have to approve the expenditures, but what we would do is we would list them, and basically all funds are going to be encumbered. It's just whether or not they're immediately encumbered or encumbered for a future date.
Okay.
And that's what I'm proposing for 5E and 5F. So I'm 5D and 5E. So it'd be proposing of the draft maintenance agreements with the proper amounts, as well as phases 2 and phase 3. So once Corey gets all of those quotes together, that you guys will have a better idea of how much it's going to cost and which phases you guys would like.
Okay. So,
Do you want me to withdraw my motion?
yeah, be good.
I'd withdraw my motion.
Okay. Thank you. All right, let's go to item 5F, clerk of the board.
Discussion and clarification on administrative support for the CalID Remote Access Network, presented by Rhonda, Clerk of the Board.
Good afternoon.
Go ahead. Hey,
I'm Rhonda Clarkdale, the new clerk of the board, and as such, I came in and started kind of looking at the various duties and responsibilities that are going on in our office. Of course, one of those is Brianna, our deputy clerk, has been clerking the RAND board for quite some time and doing an incredible job. As I looked at what she was doing and looking at what she's tasked to do according to the bylaws and the JPA, I became a little bit concerned. We're doing far more than clerking the board, kind of taking on responsibilities that are outside of our area of expertise. Still, she's doing an incredible job, just feeling kind of a little squeamish about the direction that we're going in. So just wanted to talk to you maybe about some ideas about using some of your expertise in your agencies. She's been taking care of budget items, vendor items, maintenance agreement items, and working with vendors, and that's kind of where I get a little nervous since that's not our area. So just kind of want to talk about how we want to handle this from here on out. Also looking at my staff time. As you know, we only have 2 deputies, and so we're doing the best that we can do, but kind of looking at my time management for staff as well. So just kind of reaching out to you, looking at some solutions, some options, the way we can proceed. I know in the JPA, it's very well spelled out, the auditor controller's role. And then in the bylaws, it's kind of brief as to what the clerk of the board, the auditor controller, and county council do for the RAND board. So I know some of you got history, kind of maybe you can talk about where we've evolved to through the years. Anyway, kind of just open it up to you to look at some direction.
So historically, I think Steve and maybe Manuel and I are the ones that have been on the board the longest. And originally, I'll call it the sworn groundwork was done by Lieutenant Smith from the Sheriff's Office. At the point that he transitioned out, it transitioned over to the Department of Corrections. And then we kind of went through the whole budget downturn of 2008, 9, 10, and the DLC had continued to try to struggle along and do that. And then at the point that we had some changes and some difficulties working with Cogent, Brianna pretty much volunteered to do it, which we really appreciated because we actually got, it's, as someone mentioned earlier, it seems like Cogent runs really hot and cold. Sometimes they're extremely responsive, and sometimes it's a ghost town. So I would be willing to offer the Sheriff's Business Office to do some of this work. Obviously, we wouldn't do anything that the Auditor Controller or the clerk's supposed to do, but I'm sure I could get a staff person to get with Brianna to find out what she's been doing and work from there if that's suitable with the board.
Any comment on that? It's a pretty good offer.
No, I just like to piggyback a little bit on what the sheriff was talking about. Is a little history. Is when we're talking about Cogent, and I think this goes back to a little bit about what you were addressing. It's been several years that no monies haven't been spent, and it wasn't at the pleasure of the board not trying. Is we weren't getting a response, and they're responsive to Brianna. But I agree that when it comes down to the business aspect of the needs of the departments, we need to step up as departments and assist Brianna on what our needs are and what we need to accomplish to get our systems up and running.
Anybody else?
Okay, so I'd be happy to follow up with your departments, and then we can kind of coordinate what employees, and we can get Brianna together with them. And I'm also going to reach out to the auditor's office and our county council, and maybe we can all get together, kind of define our roles a little bit, and then continue on to support your board.
Okay, anything further on that item? No, sir. Member reports?
I would just like to report that I have gotten an update. I've emailed all of the parties in regards to their live scan machines. I know that your guys' machines have not been fully installed yet. We're still working on some parts and collaborations with those parts. Apparently there were some issues and some things not working. I don't know what exactly wasn't working or what didn't go together. So Eric Matthews is working really hard to get those completed by February.
Next meeting date is February 20.
February 24th at 2:30 p.m.
Okay. Any other member reports? I didn't mean to cut everybody off. If not,
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I want to apologize. I forgot to mention one thing. There is a potential penalty that the board could face for the accounting error.
Okay.
And that penalty is 1 year suspension of funds. It is our hope that the state won't take that action, especially when we provide them with an updated budget, but that is a potential that is out there that they will they can penalize the board.
So would it be to our advantage to act, what you had indicated we probably need to act sooner rather than later? Maybe we should hold a special meeting as soon as we get something back from Cogent and get that letter to them as soon as possible in order to hopefully mitigate the potential for that to occur.
Yeah, I might even
I would
say,
agree.
if you get the letter from the state before we hear back from Cogent, we could guesstimate and allocate money to these three things, since it's nothing but a placeholder.
Correct.
Because I wouldn't want to wait for Cogent and have
Yeah.
that cause us to be late for the state and lose a year's worth of sales tax.
Yeah, it's a very strange requirement, which is like we just have to have it designated to go somewhere. It doesn't mean it absolutely goes there. We can change our mind at a later time, but the fact that we don't have it designated to go somewhere, that's when the state can penalize us for not doing that. And my understanding is we didn't do that for the past 2 years, which is what brought the audit from the state.
Well, I would suggest that Jay's already pulled out the phone, that we find a suitable date that everybody can meet back sooner rather than later, and we develop a quasi-budget that can work to provide some basis of how we're going to spend to the state.
Okay. Have any ideas there, Brianna?
You know, we're just really trying to work with Cogent and trying to get all of those quotes put together and phases for the members. I would have to contact him and let you guys know. I wouldn't want to set a date and then him just keep saying that he can't do it, he can't do it.
Well, I think what was said was that we can do it without them.
Mhm.
And
I think how we can designate this money, Brianna, is if you already have 3 good categories here, and we know that at least 2 of these categories will probably run into the one will definitely run into the multi-hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right, I understand from
So we can
him.
get kind of a skeleton budget with these categories, and that should meet Roy's needs as the responsive party to the state. And then if you can keep after the Cogent guy, we'll get them firmed up and get them to mesh kind of after the fact.
Right, because what Corey told me was that just upgrading the APHIS system to include the mobile ID server, just doing that alone is between 400 and 450, which depletes our whole entire funds.
Well, that's always been the history on why some of the monies haven't been spent.
Right.
Is because we didn't have enough money in the account
Right.
to move forward on the blue chips and the process servers. So
And that's what I was trying to ask of him, is to present to you guys phases and then breakdowns of those phases so that we can implement little at a time.
But that meets the criteria.
Right.
If we go and we say we've got 416,000 and we're going to spend that 416,000 on an upgraded server, which costs 450,000, it's planned, it's engaged to be spent, and that's what the state's looking for. So it doesn't matter whether we have the funds now.
And that can be changed.
We can
Yeah.
we can tell them we're going to spend it on this. We have to wait for more money to come in, but that's
Correct.
what we're going to spend it on.
It's okay that we don't spend the money, but we have to tell them why we're not spending the money
Since
and,
we
and
have this-
where it's going.
Since we have this agendized today, why can't we just make that motion now? We had it agendized. Is that possible?
I would say no, because it
Wasn't an action item?
wasn't an action item, and we haven't. There wasn't a budget
Okay.
prepared and distributed within the 72 hours prior.
Okay.
another large cost, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be the maintenance agreement,
Yes.
because that is something that we have to have in place in order for us to do business.
Yes, and you have, from the new live scan machines, you have 1 year of maintenance that is granted with the new live machines, but after that, you don't need that maintenance agreement.
That's been one of our hangups too, is their maintenance agreement is hugely expensive, almost to the point where you can buy a whole other machine at the cost, or multiple machines at the cost of their maintenance agreement. And in the past, we had chosen to pay their, I don't know what you call it, their per diem rate or whatever, to come in and work on our
Yeah.
machine. And that's why we get the service that we get, because we're not on their maintenance agreement contract, and so they don't deem us as worthy, and they get to us when they get to us. But to do the upgrades that we would like to do and get into the mobile devices, you are looking at pushing things out 2 to 3 years when you
Yes.
include the maintenance contract with that. If that cost is in fact $400 and some odd $1,000 for the server upgrade, I mean, you're 2 years out before you can, before you have enough money to, you do the server upgrade, and by the time you have enough money to go in and buy your blue check devices, you're 2 or 3 years beyond that. So, but we can certainly identify where we want to spend the money. There's never enough to go around.
So you guys would like a special meeting the second week of February, February 10th, Wednesday, February 10th?
Works for me.
Gives
I'll-
the county
I'll just
council
send,
enough time and us enough time to work together?
But he's already been designated as my
Good.
If it's that afternoon, I can make it, I think.
We can even do it earlier if it's a problem.
Or I can't do it earlier. I'll be in Tulare. Huh?
So February
I
10th,
could do it that-
2:30?
Yeah, 2:30 is fine.
I can't be present at the February 10th meeting, but another member of county council will be present in my place. I'm on vacation that week. I know.
Day before
I
or
know.
after the 11th, does that work better?
I'll be gone the whole week, but I have to drive into a meeting.
I'm available every day, all day. Just let me know when.
I'm available on the 11th as well.
Let's do the 11th.
February 11th?
I mean, for us, for Jay, for me, for Manuel, we've got replacements that, we have other bodies that can come in, and it's more difficult for mayors and supervisors, and so,
It's
you know,
February.
if it works for you guys set it up, we'll have someone here.
Yeah, 2:30 on the 11th is fine with me.
Okay, I will be sending you guys an agenda.
And one other option for the board is if staff or the board would wish to prepare the budget, they can do so, or Brianna can, it's, either or is an option.
Okay. Okay. If there's nothing else to come before this board, then we are adjourned.